Okay, so I wanted to talk about King Asa and what can we learn about him. Often we start this journey called Christianity with zeal, like metal hungry sprinters, fueled by our passion for God. We abandon our hearts to Jesus, longing only for his glory. Our hearts beat with wholehearted devotion to God, much like that of King Asa of Judah. King Asa started his kingly rule well. 1 Kings chapter 15, verse 14, succeeding King Abijah, a man with 14 wives. Asa deposed even his own grandmother, who worshipped Ashtoreth, a false goddess. He tore down pagan altars and sacred pillars, and he removed the high places. He fortified his cities and developed a shield bearing army of 300,000 men. More importantly, he commanded Judah to seek the Lord, the God of their fathers, and to obey his law and commandments. 2 Chronicles chapter 14, verse 4. Asa began well, even when Zerah the Ethiopian threatened Judah with a vast army. Verse 9. Asa sought the Lord. Lord, there is none like you to help the powerless against the mighty. Help us, O Lord our God, for we rely on you. And in your name we have come against this vast army. O Lord, you are our God. Do not let man prevail against you. Verse 11. The result, there was no more war until the 35th year of Asa's reign, 1519. Okay. Asa continued well. Yet something happened in the 35th year that negatively impacted how Asa finished his life. Baasha, the king of Israel, essentially barricaded Judah, which prevented trade, a sure sign of impending invasion. And instead of seeking the Lord's strength, Asa took the silver and gold from the treasuries of the temple and bribed a pagan to protect him from Baasha. The Lord sent Hanani the seer to rebuke Asa. He recounted the works of God had performed on Asa's behalf and reprimanded him for relying on a human king, instead of the strong arm of Almighty God. Then Hanani uttered his famous line, "For the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him. You have done a foolish thing, and now you'll be at war." 2 Chronicles chapter 16, verse 9. The Hebrew phrase for a committed heart here is lebab shalem, a covenantal term that means wholeheartedly devoted. The term appears several times in Kings and Chronicles. When Solomon prayed for the people at the temple dedication, he prayed for the people to have a wholehearted devotion. 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 61. Not much later, we see a different picture, one of shifted allegiance. As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his hearts from after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. Okay, literally, his wives bent his heart away from God. This is why it's very, very dangerous to date or have relations with pagan women. Unsaved means you're pagan, or women who are not committed to Jesus. Asa possessed a bent heart, did not listen to Hannah, and instead imprisoned him. Asa even began oppressing his own people. Eventually, he contracted a severe foot disease. Many scholars suggest it was gout, but it was, but he still did not seek God. Instead, he relied only on physicians. Asa did not finish well. What can we learn from Asa? Regardless of age, ministry, position, or status, we will leave this earth either as one who finishes well or as one who stumbles. How can we finish well? With a wholehearted devotion to God. Don't forget God after a victory. God delivered Asa from the powerful Ethiopian army and astonishing victory. Perhaps Asa took some of the credit himself, thinking he had somehow had a hand in the victory. Perhaps he exchanged his longing for God's fame for a delight in his own. Perhaps in his pride he forgot God. Whatever contributed to his decision, when it came time to face another powerful foe, Asa forgot God's past deliverance and acted out of fear. Seek God when pain comes. Unlike Asa, Hezekiah after, Hezekiah after him would seek God in his illness, stricken with terminal disease. Hezekiah begged God for reprieve. He reminded God that he had a devoted heart. 2 Kings chapter 20, verse 3. God heard Hezekiah's prayers, and in his sovereignty chosen to heal him, giving him another 15 years of life. Sadly, in contrast, Asa did not seek God in his disease. Instead, he turned away from God's support. And many times, how often have we been this way? All right. How often have we uh, sought our own protection, whether it's our own strength instead of God after God has delivered us? How often, when we were in trouble, maybe in finances, and then after we got a certain place financially, we forgot God and we got proud and we did things our own way. We forgot God and we decided to do things the way we want to do things, and we end up in sin, and then we have to end up hitting rock bottom, or some situation has to bring us back to our knees to humble us to understand where we've been and who has delivered us, and and to not bite the hand that feeds us, which is Jesus Christ. How often has that been the case in our lives? Okay, and it is true. We start off, sprinting, and we forget that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And Jesus said, "He who endures to the end shall be saved," not he who sprints. The race is not won by the swift or the strong, but those who can endure to the end. All right. I hope this message was a blessing to you. Um, yeah, if you want to check out this message again um, at your leisure, you could listen to it on Spotify, Fight to the Finish, and also uh, you could check it out on Rumble, Fight to the Finish. But other than that, peace and God bless you. And I pray that we're able to trust God and endure to the end, especially in these harsh times that we are going through. King Asa is very much a story that shows what could happen when we are not consistent in our love for God. What happens when we don't endure. And the fact of that God will send people to try to get us back on track, to rebuke us. And sadly, like King Asa, we will shut them away. We will cut them off. But hopefully, we will not, uh, when God tries to wake us up, we will not turn from Him as much as is the case in many of these situations. Okay, other than that, peace and God bless.